Okay, here we go. So according to statistics from the U.S. Department of Education, the homeschool population has doubled from 1 to 2 million in the last decade. And not surprisingly, the pandemic has led to a huge increase in the numbers of families choosing to homeschool their children. So I was watching the Alaska Insight earlier this week, and Patrick Mayer, the superintendent for the Aleutians East Borough, he shared that some districts in Alaska have reported an increase of up to 700 students enrolled in homeschool programs. I recently saw on a blog post yesterday that the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District, more than half of their students are being homeschooled. And then Elizabeth shared during a webinar on Tuesday that the homeschooling program that she's participating in, they doubled the enrollment and they've capped it. They're no longer taking any more families. So our libraries are really going to be become even have more an important role in supporting these families. Okay, so let's see if Mark has joined us. Okay, I don't see Mark yet. Okay, we're going to do it. I love this little graphic because when I was a full-time working mom, that's exactly how I felt most of the time. So even in the best of times, working parents may have difficulty securing quality child care, and families who are dependent on grandparents or older adults to assist with child care have suddenly found themselves without support because of the pandemic. Many parents with full-time jobs and young children are juggling work, school, and family responsibilities at home. And many families are feeling isolated and alone as they try to meet all of these responsibilities without the support of their extended family, their work colleagues, their friends, and their neighbors. So right now we're in the midst of an ongoing pandemic, but there's still things that we can do, that our libraries can do to support homeschooling families to be successful. We can provide support. We can let parents know that we value their efforts as parent educators, that we care about the educational success of their children. We can model lifelong learning and the value of learning new things together. We can promote access to our books, our resources, and our online resources that support children's learning. We can develop programs with families in mind, create family programs and hands-on workshops and schedule them during times that are convenient for this homeschooling audience. So before I go to the next slide, anybody have anything to share about parenting during the pandemic? Anything that you're seeing in your libraries? Okay, let's go to the next slide. So once parents have made the decision to homeschool, there's several things that they have to do. And the Alaska State Library has developed a homeschooling resource LibGuide, and it kind of walks parents through the process of what they need to do. Actually, the LibGuide was developed for libraries to share with parents in their community. So homeschooling is defined as learning outside of public or the private school environment. This is not remote virtual school. This is not your child's going to be scheduled to attend Zoom meetings with their teacher at the school from home at a specific time. Homeschooling is completely different. Homeschooling is about parents deciding which curriculum they want their child to develop, and then the parent serves as the child's educator, helping to develop the lessons using a curriculum. A lot of the homeschool programs have support. They have support within the district to kind of help parents in this role. If any of you have experience with homeschooling and you want to share your experience about that, I'd appreciate it. This would be a good time to do that. Okay, so this is the process that parents would need to walk through and once they get their child enrolled. And there's more information on the homeschooling resources LibGuide, and it has the list of all of the various programs, links to learning preferences, and so on. We're going to go to the next thing here. So new homeschooling parents or families will definitely benefit from talking to parents who have experience educating their children at home. And this is where I was hoping that Mark was going to be online. I don't see Mark yet. Okay, so families can reach out to one of the associations from the Alaska Homeschool Groups. It's a list online. I can tell you that some of the information wasn't really current. I know that Elizabeth shared during Tuesday's webinar that once she enrolled in the IDEA program, that they kind of set her up with the other families that were in the same program to kind of help foster that peer-to-peer networking and sharing for families. Our homeschooling resources list additional homeschool resources. One of them is the Alaska Private and Home Educators Association, and they have some really great resources that they've created for families. These are primarily little short videos with practical advice on how mothers may juggle working from home, overseeing their children's learning, tips on how to build healthy family relationships, suggestions for self-care, and also a mom possible mentoring Facebook group. So just note that these videos were focused entirely on moms, hence the title Mom Possible. And as families come in various configurations, these resources may not work for everyone. For example, a single father raising a child at home. Okay. So what are some library services that you can promote? So obviously many libraries are either still just providing curbside service, appointment only. They're not doing any programming in the library. How can they support these this massive increase of homeschoolers? Well, kind of in a way, it's kind of like going back to basics and doing our marketing the services that are that have our standard services we've had for a while. And so the first one obviously is the reference services, our traditional reference. But we can also highlight the reader's advisory resources available through Novelist. We can highlight our interlibrary loan service and the homeschooling ebooks and articles available through EBSCO. All of the public libraries should have received an invitation for Zoom training from Daniel Cornwall. And once libraries have completed their training, they can contact Jack to schedule the Zoom meetings. And if you have that Zoom license, you may want to facilitate a monthly book club for homeschooling parents, an online science fair for the children, poetry reading or poetry slam for older students. In November, you may want to host weekly online writing events for NaNoWriMo. Any way that you can kind of think about first informing people about the services that you provide and then targeting your marketing specifically to the needs of the homeschooling family. So always think about the families and how can they use these resources to benefit their children's schooling. Obviously, Live Homework Help is an amazing resource that's freely available to every Alaskan. And Janet's going to share some information about Live Homework Help.
Well, I was recently tasked with kind of organizing a statewide promotional campaign for Live Homework Help, which has been around since 2005. For many years, it had heavy use, but that use has fallen off. So it was decided that we needed to really reacquaint residents with what live homework is and how it can help in schooling and learning. So like many educational companies right now, they have really beefed up the quantity of resources that are available. And given the number of students who are homeschooled or in remote or hybrid learning situations, this is kind of a silver lining in the pandemic because Live Homework Help has quite a lot to offer. So all of our promotional messaging is going to use this new Live Homework Help logo that you see here that's the white and gold on the black. We contract with tutor.com, and a lot of kids I know, they just tutor.com and they go down a rabbit hole. So what we're trying to communicate to everyone is that we're going to have everybody go to sled.alaska.edu because it's easy to remember, and it brings us to a page that a lot of people are familiar with, and there are so many other resources that they will see are available for them. So anything that you put out there, please put the location as sled.alaska.edu. It creates another click. We think it's painless. You'll see here that on the page we have 3 places which you can click and get to where you need to go. So there shouldn't be too much confusion. You'll fall into Live Homework Help. So what do parents need to know about Live Homework Help? I was just telling Julie before we started that I can't do a deep dive. We don't have the time, and I certainly don't want to do a flyby. So I'm kind of going to look at Live Homework Help in terms of how you can assist parents in becoming familiar with the resources and how to use them. So this is Live Homework Help in a nutshell. So what do parents need to know? First of all, Live Homework Help is free, and there are no surprises when you dig in. Oftentimes when you see an advertisement for a service, you go in and after a few layers you find out, but aha, there's more. If you really want this, pay this and we will give it to you. So there are no extras at an extra cost in Live Homework Help, and you're not asked to purchase anything. Another thing that's attractive is that it's easy to access from anywhere on any device, be it your computer, your tablet, or their phone app. And that is always helpful. The next thing is that I think is a concern for all parents when students are spending any time online, and that is that this Live Homework Help tutoring is safe and anonymous. Tutor.com has approximately 3,500 trained tutors who must take subject tests in order to qualify, and only 7% of them pass. So the testing and recruiting is pretty rigorous. All tutors have to have a background check. No personal information is exchanged in the tutoring sessions, be they the drop off your paper and have it returned in 12 hours, or in the live sessions one-on-one with your tutor. And finally, all the work on the live sessions and the drop off sessions is completely recorded. So you will have, if you register for an account, which I'm going to explain how and why, you will have access to all the recorded sessions that you've had with your tutor, which can be very helpful for review, or if a parent wants to have a better understanding of what their student is working on, they can go to those recordings. All the learning sessions are personalized, and the emphasis is on conceptual learning and critical thinking. So it's not a giving pat answers and moving on. It's making sure that the student really understands the concepts that are involved in the work that they're learning and being tutored on. All the learning sessions are personalized, and students can get help in over 60 subjects, which is pretty amazing. The hours for Live Homework Help in Alaska are Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. and Saturday and Sunday from noon until 2 a.m. So that accounts for some of those teenagers who were going to be working on things when everybody else is asleep. So I guess the next thing is that how can parents and their child make the most of Live Homework Help as homeschoolers? Well, the first thing I recommend is that you sign up for an account. And of course, a lot of people resist signing up. They would rather just go in as a guest, which you can do. But there's a few things that signing up for an account provides to you. First of all, when you sign up for an account, it's first name only and an email. So there's nothing else. And I've been signed up for quite some time and have been messing around. And my email is not being spammed. And I am not getting any crazy emails that I would associate with using Live Homework Help. So I think it's a pretty good setup. When you sign up for an account, you can retrieve the work that you have uploaded. You have a place to save it called your locker. You can also reconnect with your favorite tutors. So if you found the tutor that makes sense of the math problem, and I know that, you know, some people just have a hard time understanding certain things, and if they find a tutor that makes it easily understandable for them, then they can always reconnect with that tutor, which adds another level of personalization. Also, you can drop off your work and have it reviewed within 12 hours and return to you. So that's a helpful part of having an account. You can review previous sessions, as I mentioned. You can save your assignments in your locker. And you can also have the option of just continuing as a guest and not having these extras. Another thing that I would recommend that parents and their children do is take the tour. When you first sign in to Live Homework Help, you'll see a link there that says take the tour. And it's about 7 minutes long, and it basically has the screen and goes through and shows you all the parts and pieces in the layout, which I think is a good way to familiarize yourself with the platform. And that's just the beginning, but a good 7-minute video. Then the next thing is to look at Live Homework Help. One of the nice things about Live Homework Help is that if you're not great at the keyboard, you can opt now for a voice chat session. So that makes things easier. Another thing is they have an honor code, which basically says that you're using your own work and that there's no cheating. And I think that's always an opportunity to have a discussion with your child on what those parameters mean and the significance of them. You can also look and select a topic, a subject, and a grade level. And the topics and subjects come in various grade levels, anything from kindergarten to early college. The math is everything from elementary math to calculus. English is from early reading all the way up through the college essay. You're going to be asked when you submit a paper or an assignment or a worksheet to be reviewed or for help on it, you're going to be asked for your zip code and the type of school you attend, and that's merely for statistical purposes so the Alaska State Library can see what are the different types of users and they're interacting with Live Homework Help, which helps us when patients goes to the legislature to give them an update on the impact of Live Homework Help and the need for funding. Let's see, what else? The average time for live sessions tends to be about 20 minutes, but that's not a limiter. So that if you as a student need more work, more coaching, the coach tutor will stay with you and work with you until you get to a point where you feel comfortable with the information. Also, they ask that you do one assignment at a time, and so this is that you don't front load and put all your assignments in at once. So you work through one assignment from beginning to end. And when you submit an essay, or for older people, a resume, or you're dropping off a math question, if you don't do the live tutoring, you can do a 12-hour review. And what's really neat about that is when it comes back, it's in kind of a Google Doc setting. I mean, you look at it and things will be highlighted that need to be discussed or addressed or changed. And then there will be all these notes on the side. And the same goes for the math. So I think that it's a really easy to understand interface and very helpful, I think. Other things that you can look at, you can take a practice quiz. So you can pick a topic and a subject and dig down as far as you want take some quiz to test your understanding, figure out where things are that you need to brush up on. You can also review for tests like the advanced placement tests, the SAT, ACT, lots of test prep resources, and they have a whole series of videos on math and English topics that are short, very concise, well explained, not lots of bells and whistles, but I think very effective. So you want to look at those too. Another thing I wanted to mention about the drop-down menus and the different topics is when you put a question in, it will come up with vetted websites that they have reviewed and feel are appropriate and quality, and they have also made their own, and also websites in general that have text-based information for you to look at. So you have a lot of different venues in which to find review materials or introductory materials. And then I think the last thing is scroll down to the bottom to look at the Skills Center Resource Library, which is at the bottom of the main page. And that is another gold mine of resources, from study resources, quizzes, flashcards, different types of study aids for all ages, test prep resources, and career resources. You can even upload your resume and have them review it, give you points and tips on interviews and things like that. And on my last slide, I think the last tip that I would share with parents, and this will help them when they're in a pinch and they need some background or an introduction. You go to the YouTube channel and just type and look for the tutor.com main YouTube channel, and it is loaded with short and long video clips, and they're organized by audience, so you'll have lots of them that are made for students. You'll have lots of them on different subjects and topics, and then you'll have quite a few selections for parents, which I think is very helpful. So I would recommend students look at these and maybe watch the introductory videos on everything that tutor.com offers in terms of what their needs are. And I love this little picture here, a parent just collapsing under all the responsibilities for homeschooling their child, be it through homeschool or through their school system, but bringing it home for the win. Tips and tools for parents look to be very helpful. I think that's about it, and I am not the expert, but I'm having to do a lot of sharing on this with teachers, librarians, and anybody who emails and asks questions. So if you have anything that you'd like to ask, or things that perhaps you have found very helpful in working with live homework help, this is the time to share.
Absolutely. There's always a wealth of knowledge in the room, and so we always like to take opportunities for people to share it. They can unmute themselves or and share it that way, or they can enter information into the chat box. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, going forward then. Okay. So when I first started, I mentioned there was things that we can do to help families. One of them is simply to support them as parent educators, and the second thing is access to books, access to resources, and access to online resources that we have available. So when I was talking earlier this week to Mark Prock, Upstream Learning, he wasn't familiar with Alaska Digital Library, so that's why I included it here. And I'm not sure, Mark, are you online yet? I keep looking. I don't see him. Okay, he's a teacher. He's a teacher advisor, and so I'm sure he just got swamped with things at school. Okay, so one of the we can support our homeschooling families by first starting with our physical collections, right? By reviewing, evaluating, updating our library collections. So I did a search on the Alaska Library catalog of some homeschooling resources, and there's a lot of things on there, but a lot of them are kind of dated. So it may be a time to kind of invest some time, energy, and money into that collection. Some of the curriculums are really literature-based. So some of the homeschooling curriculums, such as the classic curriculum, is focused on great books. So the real emphasis on reading the classical literature of the Western civilization. So you might want to look at your collection of those materials. The Charlotte Mason curriculum is another one that has a heavy outside reading curriculum, and it has a focus on biographies and, again, classical literature. So you may want to look at that. You may want to look at the number of books that you have that are on the topics of games, games for learning, games for reading, games for math. You may want to develop and promote curated collections of materials on specific subjects and topics that may be of interest to homeschoolers. Alaska animals, simple machines, volcanoes and earthquakes, those kind of things. If your library allows teachers the ability to check out additional items for an extended period of time, you may want to consider offering this to parent educators as well. If your library is a member of the Alaska Digital Library, you'll certainly want to highlight the adult, teen, and kids collections of ebooks and audiobooks that are available to families. Tumble Books of the Day, kind of a fun, freely daily content for families, schools, and public libraries. It's just a resource that parents can use maybe to keep a child entertained for a little bit. And then the Sesame Street ebooks. So Samantha, do you want to talk a little bit about the Sesame Street ebook collection?
Yeah, sure. So we have access to the Sesame Street ebooks through, I believe, June 2021. It won't be extended past that date because it actually won't exist past that date. But so the Sesame Street ebooks collection, they are some of the classic Sesame Street books that you might remember if you were reading them as a kid or if you're reading them with your kids in the 80s and 90s, and then there's a lot of new ones. Some of them are interactive ebooks. Some of them are ones that play on their own, like a little movie. There's even a couple of like little games and things like that, but they're all appropriate for, I'd say, like the 6 and under crowd. So it could be something that families could use for supplementing a kindergarten lesson, or it could just be, hey, while you're with your older kid, you can share these books with your preschool age kids, sort of to give them something to do while their older brother or sister is working on schoolwork.
Thank you. Thank you, Samantha. Okay, and then I've also included in here Alaska Mail Services. And one of the things that came up during, I mentioned that Alaska Insight interview with the Deputy Commissioner from Department of Education and also Patrick Mayer, is that there's a lot of school districts that have parents that have absolutely no access to the internet. And in these really small rural communities, they also probably don't have access to a library. So Alaska Mail Services is a huge resource that's available to anybody who lives remotely. The service is free and open to anyone who lives outside of an area serviced by by an area serviced by a state-funded library. And once those folks are registered, they can receive books, movies, audiobooks, and music through the mail. So again, this is a resource that you probably want to share if you are in a library that might have outlying village libraries where people don't have access to a public library. And I'm not sure if I have anybody from Juneau who wants to speak to Alaska Mail Services. See, Sherry Kitchen is on the line.
Hey, Julie.
MJ.
Yeah, this is Sherry Kitchen. What you were saying sounds about right. I don't know that there's any restrictions or problems. You would be pulling from Juneau Public Library's collection, though, at this time.
Right, and I think that's a great thing to stress is that the resources are coming from the Juneau Public Library. We used to split the Alaska Mail Services between Fairbanks and Juneau, but then Juneau kind of became the overseeing institution.
Did you have any questions, Julie?
No, I just think it's a fabulous resource. And again, we're kind of just focusing on some of our traditional services, and now is an opportunity to really stress them to our families. Okay.
Thanks, Julie.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I mentioned the Alaska Digital Library Kids Collection, and there's just some wonderful materials available on here. And there's ebooks and audiobooks, and so I just wanted people to just have an idea of like what kind of things they would find in this collection. And then there's also the teen and the adults. And then also to stress to the families that the Alaska Digital Library has nonfiction materials as well. So it's just another great resource. Okay, tried and true. Oh, I want to say one more thing about this. So if you're unfamiliar, oops, I'm going the wrong way. Oh, what did I do? Sorry, folks. I have a hard time seeing this teeny tiny little thing here. So, so how does it work? A lot of times people aren't familiar with how the Alaska Digital Library is set up. So the way it works is libraries join the Alaska Library Network, which is a consortium of libraries around the state. And then they can choose to participate in the Alaska Digital Library. And in order to participate, they have to pay an annual service licensing fee, and also they have to contribute funds for the collection, for building the collection, so purchasing the actual items that are in it. Any library that is already a part of the Alaska Digital Library, there's a wealth of promotional materials that they can use to promote it. All they have to do is go to the Alaska Library Network website. And I'm going to type it in the chat here real quick. Because I think people may not know that there's web graphics from Overdrive, there's flyers, there's a half-sheet PR for Alaska Digital Library. There's just all kinds of different resources that are available to libraries to promote it. And right now we have 50 libraries in Alaska participating in the Alaska Digital Library. Okay. In order to use the resources, people do have to register, and they do have to have a library card. So when libraries get new members, they actually send those library card numbers to the folks, I believe it's either, I'm not sure if actually Jody oversees that or if somebody at Overdrive does. I know she has instructions for how libraries can add new library members to the Alaska Digital Library. Okay. Okay, so sometimes I see this image of SLED and I think, oh, it's like a big yawn, right? It's like, oh, SLED, oh, it's been here forever, so what? And we forget, right? We just forget what a fantastic resource it is. And there's so many families that aren't aware of these resources. So now more than ever is the time to just highlight these amazing resources. Our state spends a lot of money on them, and they're really fantastic. We'd hate to lose these resources. And so we need to really promote them. So I'm not going to go through all of the databases, but what I would encourage libraries to do is I would encourage you to highlight a database a month. Dedicate a staff person, make it their job to do that. And then have them send out information in all of your social media ways or however it is you communicate with your patrons, because if people don't know about something, they're not going to use it. And you have to dig into each of these databases to find out kind of, number one, who's the audience. So if you do create that kind of information, you would want to create marketing that's to a specific audience. It's either for parents, it's for the kids, it's for a teenager. And then what they get out of it. Why would they want to use it? How could it benefit their life? And then that's it, Send them information about the various ones that are on here. The two that my favorite databases, the ones that I think are super valuable and kind of underused, is Novelist. I love Novelist. I love it because I can explore, learn about new authors, find out about new genres. When they do a survey for homeschooling families around the country, and they ask them why they homeschool, and a lot of parents homeschool their families for religious reasons. They don't feel like the school is a good environment. They homeschool their children because they want to kind of have more input into the moral development of their children. Well, novelist, actually, one of the genres is Christian fiction. And I'm not saying that all families are Christian, obviously, but there is maybe a segment of the population that would find that helpful. And under the Christian fiction genre is the different themes, so that students could explore: Count Your Blessings, Christianity Under Fire, and so on. There's also realistic fiction, so parents of a different persuasion, their kids could find out under that genre. They could look under themes like dealing with an illness, facing racism, dealing with mental illness. The novelist has fantastic grab-and-go list that includes fiction titles and nonfiction titles by grade level. So if parents are looking for a list of really great, books on STEAM for a sixth grader, they're going to find it under the grab-and-go list. They have a section called Books to Movies, so families who want to read a book as a family and then watch a movie together, they can find a great list of those. So Novelist is it's a fabulous resource, and I think it's super underused. The other one that I really like a lot, and we've been doing a series of webinars, is the Learning Express. So you can go to our archived webinars for Librarians page and find, I think there's 3 or 4 webinars on some of the fantastic resources available from Learning Express. Send that link to families. Tell them, just share that information out so that they know that they can go there and find out more about these fantastic resources for high school students getting ready to go to college, or somebody looking to find a job. There's all kinds of study materials for students there. Some of it's basic, like improving your writing skills, grammar skills. I think there's some basic math tutorials there as well. So Learning Express is another really underutilized database, but a valuable one. So Samantha, do you want to share some information about Ready to Read?
Sure. So I think a lot of times when we're thinking about homeschool, we tend to think just K through 12, right? But of course, a lot of families here are not sending their kids to full-day childcare anymore, or they're not doing the part-day preschool they may have otherwise done. And so homeschool can also be trying to recreate that kind of play-based preschool learning environment for their children. And so Ready to Read Alaska is a program that I run, and we do training and education for parents and caregivers and librarians, all about early literacy and practical ways you can help get your children ready for school. But we also loan out free reading kits, and they can be in board books or picture books, and they are themed on different things. So if a caregiver is trying to supplement or recreate some kind of preschool learning environment, and say their theme that week is they're doing something on dinosaurs, and they can check out one of our dinosaur book bags and get more information and activities and books they can share with their kids to help supplement that. And then we also have bags that are set aside for caregivers as well to help them if they're looking for ways they can share songs and rhymes with their kids, or how to do a story time or share books more effectively with their kids. We even have one that's all about math activities for young children, art activities for young children, and then stuff just about brain development and research. So those would be resources to share with caregivers and parents in your area. Normally those go out through the ALC Courier or through that 1-800-ILL. I'm not sure how much of the system is still running, but if you can't get them through the regular channels, just send me an email. I'll put my information in the chat box, and we have postage set aside. Like, I will just mail you the bag at your library if you can't get it through ALC. We'll just send it through the post service.
Okay, thank you so much, Samantha. And I just really think that the early literacy training that Samantha does is just invaluable, and just reminding parents about the 5 practices of early literacy of reading, singing, playing, talking, and writing with their children. That way they don't have to feel guilty if they feel like they're not, if they're singing with their children, playing with their children, that's learning. They're doing something positive with their kids right then, and they should feel good about that. Okay. So STEM kits, if you didn't attend the webinar on Tuesday that Elizabeth Nicolai led with the panel consisting of Amanda Lyon, James Adux, Annie Thomas, don't worry, we did record that webinar, and it will be posted to the Archives webinars for Librarians webpage. It was a fantastic webinar. Elizabeth shared Anchorage Public Library's fantastic collection of STEM kits and the whole process that she undertook to create those STEM kits. And she's also very graciously willing to share all of her content list and her brochures and everything that she can with folks. The thing to remember is that those STEM kits are available for APL library card holders, and they aren't going to be shipped out around around the state. But a lot of libraries are working on creating their own STEM kits and discovery kits because this is a terrific way to support homeschooling families. One of the things that Elizabeth stressed during the webinar is that the difference between the kits that she creates is that they're kind of like a topic focus. They're not like a comprehensive, a full curriculum or module on a topic. It's like one activity. It's very specific. Other things that our libraries can do to support families. Obviously, we can loan. If you have board games that you're already loaning, that's fantastic. You may want to spend a little more money and bump up that collection. If you don't loan board games, your library might want to think about it. It's a great way to support families and support learning at home is to make it possible for them to check out a board game. You could develop book-to-movie kits so that they could read the book aloud and then the family could watch it together. You might want to include some laminated, open-ended questions in that kit so that they're not asking super specific questions like what character did this, but more about the themes of the book, those kind of things. You might want to invest in math manipulatives and make those available to families in your library that come to your library. And also, what about clipboards so that families, if they have kids at home, just sometimes if a kid doesn't want to write at the kitchen table, if you can allow them to use a clipboard and go sit on the couch or something and complete their homework that way, the family might get more work done. Just think about the kind of practical things that your library can do to support families. Okay. So now I just want to invite Angela. Angela, if you mentioned that you're a homeschooling mom, you're homeschooling your daughter at home, and do you have any suggestions on how libraries can support families?
Hi, sorry, I was just getting off a phone call. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry about that. So yes, I homeschool my daughter, although it's difficult to do with a full-time job. I don't recommend it unless you have a lot of support. I happen to live with my mom and my stepdad, so he's the stay-at-home grandpa, and he kind of picks up the slack for me. So when we first started, before I had this job, we were just doing kindergarten, and I just decided to do everything for free from what I could find online. So I found lots and lots and lots of resources on Pinterest. And there's lots of good websites out there that have, kind of learning games and things that make it interesting. One thing that I would encourage, if a homeschooling parent, a new homeschooling parent came to me for advice, it's great if you can. It's great if you can purchase a full curriculum. We're able to go through a company called Memoria Press. They do a classical Christian curriculum, and I really love it. They're very thorough. They don't pull any punches. They really challenge you and your children to learn to the best of their ability. Like my kid's learning Latin at 8 years old, and I find that kind of awesome. But it really, homeschooling is great because you can be so flexible with your child, with your family, with their learning style, with your schedule. What I do with my daughter is we wake up early in the morning and we go over new things. We'll go over her Latin vocabulary and a couple of different things. And then throughout the day while I'm at work, she'll write down her spelling words, and she'll, read little bits in her science books. And then at the end of the day, I can go over and check her stuff, and she does math with her papa. And I know that my situation is really unique. I know that doesn't help a lot of people, but again, if a homeschooling parent came to me and needed some advice, I would say read everything you can get your hands on. Read books from other homeschoolers. One of my all-time favorites is A Year of Learning Dangerously by Quinn Cummings. She was a former child actress, and she homeschooled her daughter for a year. It's one of the funniest books I've ever read, but it just talks about her trying to figure out which type of homeschooling would work best for her. And she goes to all these conventions and meets lots of crazy people. When you look at a curriculum, don't feel like you have to purchase the whole curriculum exactly as they offer it. I guess some curriculums might only be sold like that, but the one that we purchase, if you buy all of the books from them that they recommend you read out loud, it's an extra probably $300 to $500. And to those parents, I would say go to the library instead. They'll either have the books at the library, they can interlibrary loan them from another library, or if your library has the budget for it, I would even look into looking at a few of the more popular curriculums. There are a lot of them that recommend the same read aloud books for the same age levels, and maybe even spend a little money going on thrift books and buying kind of those sets of things. Pardon me, the phone's ringing. Sets of things that people can come by and borrow, and so you'll have some extra copies. I know, like if you try and buy those sets for all of the homeschool families in your community, that's a lot of money. But I wasn't really prepared to present. I feel like I'm kind of please email me if you have any questions. I'm always more than happy to talk about homeschooling. I just feel like I'm not doing a great job right now.
No, actually, Angela, you did a perfect job. We just wanted to make it real, just to remind people that we do have librarians who are juggling full-time work and homeschooling their children at the same time. So there's a lot of, and we just wanted to just kind of get that personal input. So thank you. You did a fabulous job.
Well, thank you.
And again, we want to stress that our libraries are, we're not going to purchase all the books that support their curriculum, but if there are things such as definitely books about how people can homeschool their children, literature books, those kind of things, nonfiction books for children, definitely all of those things we should be thinking about how we can improve our collections. Okay. So I wanted to share this information about writing boxes. So, our libraries are closed. We're doing curbside service. How do we develop some kind of family programming, right? It's a really challenging time. And so I just happened to stumble upon this really fabulous webinar that was done by Lisa Von Drask. And so it was the Writing Boxes library program that will inspire writing and support literacy and family engagement. And the thing about this program is that it could definitely work during this time. Lisa, she has made her guide, I think her guide's 164 pages, but it's freely available to download, and it's on the University of Minnesota's website. So if you just go University of Minnesota Writing Boxes, you'll pull it up, and then you can download her guide. The beauty of her guide is that she just really talks about why libraries may want to consider doing this program and then how they can implement it. So a little bit more background on it. So writing boxes they're just simply plastic containers with writing materials, pens, pencils, markers, crayons, glue, that kind of stuff. And what Lisa did is she's created an 8-week program where she had the writing boxes so each child had access to the writing materials. And then what she selected, what she called mentor books. So I think one of her lessons was on cooking. And so she kind of highlighted cooking. And then the idea was that then she kind of shared a cooking book with the children, and then she kind of outlined like how you would have your ingredients list and the instructions. And then she just let them go and create their own. And the beauty of her program is that it's completely non-judgmental. you're not critiquing their effort or the quality of their writing or their spelling or any of that. You're just encouraging writing. And what she found is that when you encourage writing without that, when it's non-judgmental like that, you really help foster young writers. And you talk about, how writing is a process, and the first part is just kind of getting your ideas down. And then there's an editing phase when you would focus on spelling, but that's not what you want to do initially. So I think her 8 weeks, she had one about how they can do like a comic strip. There was biographies, or poetry was another big one that she stressed. So I just would encourage us as a way that we can think about offering programs that children could participate in and parents, because during her program she did both. She had parents that came in with their children, and they would do the writing thing as well. So you could kind of create the writing boxes. You could include some of these what she calls mentor books or example, really good quality picture books that kind of illustrate what you're trying to aim for, in with the kid and allow them to be checked out at your library. You would have to resupply, obviously, the paper. You might lose a pencil or pen or a crayon occasionally, but I think that's the kind of programming that can be done right now, and it would be quality programming. So I just want to make sure I'm covering all my notes here. So in her guide, she describes why librarians should be writing offer a program like Writing Boxes, provides you with all the information you need to create the 8-week writing program. On the slide is the link to the guide and information about the webinar that was offered in 2019. It's the webinar was from InfoPeople. It's been archived and recorded, so it's freely available. You do have to register, just put in your name and your library that you work at. And I think I have another page here. Some photographs from her guide. It kind of shows the kids working together. Obviously, this was pre-COVID when people would come to her library and do this activity together, but you'll see that there are adults in the room and they are participating in the program right alongside with the children. And then she really stressed that importance of that non-judgmental space, to stand back and to stand back when writers are writing, to model the writing process and verbalize why you're doing it, to refrain from complimenting or criticizing the work, to address the writer with an open question, what would you like to tell me about your work, to have a dictionary nearby, but when children are writing, to let them know it's okay to misspell a word. They are in the writing phase, not the spelling phase. And the reason I put this on this slide is because when we think about family engagement, what we want to do is model the kind of behaviors that parents could do at home that encourage and support learning. So by sharing these kind of activities, how to create a non-judgmental space, and sharing that with our families when in a program, then those are the kind of things that they could model with their children when they're not in a program at the library, right? So when we think about family engagement, I was looking at the PLA and ALA, and they have all this material, and I thought, I just want to get to the essence of what it means. So what does it mean? It means to reach out to our families and really to understand where they are right now. We have families under stress, right? It's a really crazy time. Maybe your family's under stress. you totally get it, right? To consider the family perspectives when developing our library programs. Just think about families. How could I do this so it encourages a family or benefits a family? How could I make this more family friendly? We can model the behaviors and actions that family members can use that support learning, and I kind of showed you an example of that. We can support peer-to-peer relationships for families by, if there's a homeschooling Facebook group in the community, maybe you just share information about that with your families. If the family comes in, just say, oh, did you know that there's this great face group book out there you might want to join? Use your Zoom license to support those kind of opportunities. Maybe you can host something for homeschooling families where they can share curriculum, used curriculum with each other. Maybe you can do it in your library parking lot. Think about how you can provide opportunities for those families to talk to one another and learn from each other. And then expand community partnerships that support the health of children and families. So I know food insecurity is an ongoing issue, and I know lots of libraries have included that into their programming. And just that we continue to think of ways that we can support children physically and mentally and in all ways. And I think by offering those food programs is a great way that we can do that. So that was everything that I had to share. I'm sorry that Mark from Upstream Learning wasn't available to join us this afternoon. I thank my on-the-spot presenter, Samantha and Angela, and thank Janet Madsen very much for sharing. And if you guys have any questions, this would be a good time. Maybe you want to share what your library is doing right now to support families. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to stop the recording.
Hi.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi, this is Laura from Anchorage Public Library. Thank you for the program. So we're doing a couple of things. Of course, it's ongoing and it's the new normal. We've beefed up our STEM kits. We've beefed up our homeschooling materials. We've made a decision to move all the homeschooling materials that remained in the adult collection at LUSAC down to the LUSAC Caregivers Collection and Youth Services. So it's all there and better able to manage by the Youth Services staff. We've launched Tumble Math this week and probably won't be up and running until next week. We're launching Scholastic Book Flex. We've, since COVID started, our Listen Alaska budget for our Advantage account for 2020 was set at $90,000, and since COVID has taken place, the 2020 budget is up to $173,000 plus. And that money has been cobbled together from numerous places. With a flat materials budget, I still need to figure out how I'm coming up with that much money for 2021. And also just this week, we have begun making our magazines holdable. Our magazines were not collections were not holdable, and they are now holdable so that people can get those more easily, and that would include our homeschooling and parenting magazines. Also the support, anything that adults need for support when they figure out what support they need, whether it's a cooking magazine or they just want the latest issue of Vogue. And the other thing is we made our current issues that have never circulated and never been holdable. They're now holdable and circulatable. So we're trying to move everything out of the building and into the hands of our public and add a robust collection of digital resources.
Wow, Laura, that's fantastic. Those are really practical examples of how a library can support families, and that's fantastic. Not everybody could do that level of contribution to Alaska Digital Library, and we're so grateful for you guys for doing that. Okay, any other people want to share how they're supporting families right now with COVID? Okay. Okay, thanks everybody. I appreciate it. I'm going to stop the recording now and thank all of you for attending today. I really appreciate it. Okay, I see a note. Thank you. We got money from MOA and the care. Okay, that must be Laura. Okay, thank you.